The Bennett family's peaceful evening was shattered when 6-year-old Sophie looked up from her coloring book and casually announced, "I remember when the big ship hit the ice mountain and everyone was screaming in the dark water." What began as an innocent child's comment would evolve into one of the most extraordinary cases of past life memory ever documented, challenging everything historians thought they knew about the Titanic disaster and revealing impossible details that only someone who was actually there could have known. Sophie Bennett had always been afraid of water, refusing to take baths without intense struggle and becoming hysterical at the sight of large bodies of water during family outings. Her parents, Michael and Sarah Bennett, had attributed this fear to a normal childhood phobia until Sophie began having recurring nightmares about a massive ship sinking into icy waters while orchestra music played hauntingly in the background. Tianti. Nightmares intensified when Sophie started kindergarten and was exposed to historical pictures in her school library. One day, she came home visibly shaken after seeing a photograph of the Titanic in a children's history book. She told her parents that she recognized the ship and that she had been on it when it sank, speaking with a matter-of-fact certainty that unnerved both adults. Michael initially dismissed Sophie's claims as the product of an overactive imagination, stimulated by the dramatic images she had seen at school. However, when Sophie began describing specific details about the ship's interior that weren't shown in any children's books, he started to pay closer attention to his daughter's increasingly detailed accounts of her supposed experience aboard the doomed vessel. Sophie described the ship's grand staircase with remarkable accuracy, mentioning the ornate clock at the top and the way the light filtered through the dome above. She spoke about elegant dining rooms with white tablecloths and crystal chandeliers, first-class cabins with mahogany furniture and brass fixtures, and the feeling of the ship's gentle rocking motion during calm weather before the disaster struck. The 6-year-old's knowledge extended beyond the ship's physical features to include details about the social atmosphere aboard the Titanic. She described elaborate dinner parties, gentlemen in formal evening wear, ladies in beautiful gowns with long gloves, and the strict social protocols that governed interactions between passengers of different classes. Her descriptions matched historical accounts of the ship's social dynamics with startling precision. Sarah became concerned when Sophie began expressing specific fears related to cold water and loud noises that seemed connected to traumatic memories rather than normal childhood anxieties. The girl would become agitated when she heard certain types of music, particularly string instruments playing in minor keys, claiming that it reminded her of the band that kept playing as the ship went down. The breakthrough moment came when Sophie drew a detailed picture of the Titanic sinking, including accurate depictions of the ship breaking apart and people jumping into the frigid Atlantic water. Her drawing showed the ship at the exact angle that survivors had described, with the stern rising high into the air before the final plunge. The level of detail in her artwork was far beyond what would be expected from a 6-year-old. Michael decided to research Sophie's claims more systematically, starting with passenger manifests and historical records from the Titanic disaster. He was searching for any mention of a young girl who matched Sophie's descriptions of her previous identity, hoping to either validate or debunk his daughter's extraordinary claims about having been aboard the ship. Sophie insisted that her name had been Emma Catherine Walsh, and that she had been traveling with her parents from Ireland to America to start a new life. She described being in third-class accommodations, sharing a small cabin with her family, and feeling excited about seeing America for the first time. Her descriptions of steerage conditions matched historical accounts of third-class passenger experiences. Research into the passenger manifest revealed that there had indeed been an Emma Catherine Walsh aboard the Titanic, a 7-year-old Irish girl traveling in third class with her parents, Patrick and Mary Walsh. The family had been emigrating from County Cork to Boston, where Patrick had secured work in the shipyards. Emma had perished in the disaster along with her father, while her mother had survived and lived until 1967. The discovery that Sophie's claimed previous identity matched a real Titanic victim sent chills through the Bennett family. Michael contacted Titanic historians and researchers to verify additional details that Sophie had provided about her experience aboard the ship, hoping to find evidence that would either support or refute her remarkable claims. Dr. Elizabeth Harrison, a maritime historian specializing in the Titanic disaster, agreed to interview Sophie after Michael shared the initial findings about Emma Walsh. Dr. Harrison was initially skeptical, but became increasingly intrigued as Sophie demonstrated knowledge of ship operations, passenger routines, and disaster, details that weren't commonly known even among Titanic enthusiasts. Sophie described the ship's daily routine in third class with accuracy that amazed Dr. Harrison. She mentioned specific meal times, the communal nature of dining arrangements, the limited access to deck space for steerage passengers, and the excitement that built among emigrants as they anticipated their arrival in New York. Her knowledge of third-class life aboard the ship was consistent with survivor accounts and historical research. The 6-year-old's description of the night of the disaster was particularly compelling and traumatic. Sophie spoke about being awakened by a grinding sound and feeling the ship shudder, then hearing shouting in the corridors as crew members ordered passengers to put on life jackets. She described the chaos and confusion as families tried to stay together while following evacuation instructions. Sophie's account of the disaster included details that only someone who had been in third class could have known. She described the locked gates that initially prevented steerage passengers from reaching the upper decks, the overcrowding in the corridors as people tried to find their way to lifeboats, and the terrifying realization that there weren't enough boats for everyone aboard the ship. The emotional intensity of Sophie's memories was overwhelming for her parents to witness. She would describe the cold water, the sounds of people crying for help, and the gradual silence as the ship disappeared beneath the waves. Her account included the haunting detail of the ship's orchestra continuing to play as the vessel sank, a fact that had been documented by multiple survivors. Dr. Harrison was particularly struck by Sophie's knowledge of specific passengers and crew members who had been aboard the Titanic. The child mentioned interactions with other Irish families in third class, described particular crew members who had helped during the evacuation, and even recalled conversations with other children who had been traveling with their families to America. Sophie's memories included sensory details that added authenticity to her account of the disaster. She described the smell of the ship's engines, the taste of the simple meals served in third class, the sound of different languages being spoken in the corridors, and the feeling of the ship's vibrations as it moved through the water. These intimate physical memories were particularly convincing. The investigation expanded when Sophie mentioned specific details about Emma Walsh's family background that could be verified through Irish historical records. She described their home in County Cork, her father's work as a blacksmith, and their decision to emigrate to America for better opportunities. Research confirmed these details through church records and immigration documents. Sophie demonstrated knowledge of 1912 technology and social customs that seemed impossible for a modern 6-year-old to possess. She described gaslighting in their Irish home, horse-drawn transportation, and the clothing styles of the period with accuracy that suggested direct experience rather than learned information from books or movies about the era. The child's emotional responses to Titanic artifacts and photographs were particularly compelling evidence for her claims. When shown actual items recovered from the ship, Sophie would react with immediate recognition and sometimes distress, as if the objects triggered genuine traumatic memories rather than simple curiosity about historical artifacts. Dr. Robert Mitchell, a psychologist specializing in childhood trauma and past life memories, joined the investigation to evaluate Sophie's mental health and the authenticity of her recollections. After extensive interviews and psychological testing, Dr. Mitchell found no evidence of mental illness or external sources for Sophie's detailed knowledge of the Titanic disaster. The case attracted international attention when news of Sophie's detailed Titanic memories spread through academic and maritime history circles. Researchers from around the world contacted the Bennett family, hoping to interview Sophie and document her extraordinary claims about having been aboard the ship during its final voyage. Sophie's knowledge of the disaster's timeline was remarkably accurate, matching survivor testimonies and official inquiries about the sequence of events on the night of April 14, 1912. She correctly described the time of the collision, the gradual listing of the ship, the order in which different sections of the vessel flooded, and the approximate time when the ship finally broke apart and sank. The investigation revealed that Emma Walsh's mother, Mary, had indeed survived the disaster and had provided testimony to official inquiries about the tragedy. Sophie's descriptions of her previous mother matched historical records of Mary, Walsh's appearance and background, providing additional verification for her claimed past life identity. Sophie also demonstrated knowledge of the rescue efforts by the RMS Carpathia, describing the arrival of the rescue ship and the process of picking up survivors from the lifeboats. Her account of being in the freezing water and the gradual loss of consciousness matched medical understanding of hypothermia and drowning in the North Atlantic's frigid temperatures. The emotional impact on the Bennett family was profound, as they processed the reality that their daughter seemed to carry the traumatic memories of a child who had died more than a century ago. They struggled with how to help Sophie process these memories while ensuring her normal development as a 6-year-old in the modern world. Dr. Harrison compiled Sophie's testimonies into a comprehensive report that was shared with major Titanic research institutions. The child's account provided new insights into the third-class passenger experience during the disaster, and corroborated many details that had been disputed or uncertain in previous historical analyses. Sophie's case raised important questions about the nature of traumatic memory and its potential persistence across lifetimes. Her detailed recollections of the Titanic disaster suggested that significant historical events might leave such deep impressions on consciousness that they can survive physical death and re-emerge in subsequent incarnations. The investigation also revealed the broader social and historical context of Irish emigration in the early 20th century, as Sophie's memories of Emma Walsh's family provided insights into the hopes and dreams that had motivated thousands of families to risk everything for the promise of a better life in America. As Sophie grew older, her memories of being Emma Walsh gradually became less vivid, following patterns observed in other cases of childhood past life recall. However, her knowledge of the Titanic disaster remained remarkably accurate, and she continued to show emotional responses to maritime disasters and historical accounts of the ship's sinking. The Bennett family worked with child psychologists to help Sophie integrate her past life memories with her current identity, ensuring that the traumatic nature of her recollections didn't interfere with her psychological development. They found that acknowledging and respecting her memories, rather than dismissing them, actually helped Sophie process the associated trauma. Sophie's case contributed to ongoing research into consciousness and memory, providing evidence that some experiences may be so profound that they transcend individual lifetimes. Her detailed knowledge of the Titanic disaster challenged conventional understanding of how historical memory is preserved and transmitted across generations. Years later, Sophie maintained her conviction that she had been aboard the Titanic, though her memories had become less emotionally intense. The documentation of her case provided valuable insights for researchers studying both the historical details of the disaster and the broader questions about consciousness and survival. After death, the family's experience with Sophie's memories transformed their understanding of history, making the Titanic disaster feel immediate and personal rather than distant and abstract. Through their daughter's eyes, they had experienced one of history's most famous tragedies from the perspective of a child who had lived through it. Sophie's story also provided comfort to descendants of Titanic victims, offering hope that their ancestors' experiences had not been lost to history, but might be preserved in ways that transcend conventional understanding. Her memories served as a bridge between past and present, honoring those who had perished while providing insights into their final experiences. The investigation into Sophie's claims revealed the power of individual testimony to illuminate historical events and challenge established narratives. Her detailed account of the disaster from a third-class passenger's perspective added depth and humanity to academic understanding of the tragedy. The 6-year-old who remembered the Titanic had provided compelling evidence for the survival of consciousness beyond death while serving as a living witness to one of history's most significant maritime disasters. Her impossible knowledge of the ship and its final voyage continued to challenge researchers and inspire questions about the nature of memory and identity. Sophie Bennett's extraordinary memories of being Emma Walsh aboard the Titanic demonstrated that some historical events leave such profound impressions that they may persist across lifetimes, ensuring that the stories of those who perished are never truly lost, but may resurface to bear witness to humanity's greatest triumphs and tragedies. If this incredible story of a girl who remembered dying aboard the Titanic has moved you and opened your mind to the profound mysteries of consciousness and the ways that historical memory can transcend death itself, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories that prove the human spirit carries experiences across lifetimes, and that the past truly lives on in ways we're only beginning to understand.